All right. So moving on to part five of the novel. As I said earlier, the first three chapters of part five, especially the first two, they don't really advance the main plot that much. There's a lot of social commentary, humor, which maybe doesn't land in this day and age, and some drama that happens. We do finally meet the guy who is letting Illusion stay with him in St. Petersburg. That's Lebzhenotsikov. He's also the same guy who we found out all the way in part one at chapter two, who was kind of responsible for getting Sonya kicked out of the apartment. He talks a lot. He's kind of like a podcast bro who just feels like he's saying a lot about some subject, but really isn't. He's not too dissimilar from Luzhin as well. I think the whole idea is Dostoevsky uses both of those characters to kind of demonstrate this naivete and shallowness with some of the younger generation or new generation. Luzhin's not that young, and their thoughts and their ideas that, from Dostoevsky's mindset, he's very critical of. And for Dostoevsky, he feels like a lot of these ideas and thoughts are coming from the West, from Germany and England and whatnot. So he has these two characters, he has them portrayed not in the best of light. As I said, main thing that does occur here is that Luzhin tries to essentially frame Sonya. He sneaks some money into her pocket and then comes into her father's wake saying, "Oh my gosh, you have stolen money from me." And it creates a whole, dramatic scene. People are ready to get mad at Sonya and Katerina Ivanova, and it's a whole uproar during the wake. However, it is Lebzhenotsikov who actually comes to her defense, surprisingly, and he's like, "No, Luzhin, I saw you put the money there." So the first three chapters just kind of demonstrate Luzhin's own downfall. It's because of his own self. Raskolnikov doesn't even really play a role. He's just kind of off in the corner of the room the whole time. But my main question I had for you, setting up these three chapters, was to consider Sonya's role and what happens, right? Is she an active or passive participant in these events, right? Because it is all about her. Ultimately, she's the one kind of being framed. And yet, how is Dostoevsky setting her up to play a role or not really play a role here in these chapters? And what does this maybe tell us about her as a character? Sonya is a unique character. I'm going to kind of break her down a little bit here in the next few slides. So the main thing I think to take away, I kind of already referenced Raskolnikov a little bit with the illusion of Lazarus. I'll come back to that in a second. I think a lot of people would argue that Sonya is also kind of an illusion as well. Dostoevsky kind of uses Sonya as an illusion to a few different biblical characters and figures of sorts. Mary of Bethany, Mary Magdalene, and also the quote-unquote unnamed female sinner of Luke's gospel. She was not given a name, sadly, there. So you do have to remember, right, not only is this, a religious, society, typically, although as we see in the book, there's plenty of non-religious folks as well. But Dostoevsky does have a religious background. It kind of evolves a little bit in his own lifetime, but he's very familiar with religion, with his own Christian faith, and he definitely works it into a lot of his novels, and this definitely comes up here. So a little bit of background about some of these characters and how that you can kind of see the connections with Sonya. Now, oftentimes it's assumed that all three of these women, Mary Bethany, Mary Magdalene, and the unnamed female sinner of Luke's gospel, are all the same woman. Usually, that's a mistake. It's also often assumed that they're all prostitutes, but that's not really true either. That's never really stated. But the idea, I think, is in the biblical story, the character, the figure, right, of Jesus is said to have women followers, some of whom were prostitutes. And you have to remember this is sort of a paradox of that time, right? Because a prostitute, as we see with Sonya in this novel, is really looked down upon, right? He is not even welcomed in the apartment, easy to pick on, not held in high regard in society, right? As I said, all three of these figures in the biblical stories often get conflated with one another. That's mainly due to kind of medieval times with writers and popes back then, but they were technically all three separate. And two of them in these biblical stories do wash Jesus's feet. Now, Dostoevsky does something unique. He kind of subverts this, right? He has Raskolnikov kiss Sonia's feet. I wonder why, right? If Sonya is kind of the illusion to these women, and they're the ones who are kissing Jesus's feet, but it's Sonia's feet who are kind of basically being blessed, right? Being kissed by Raskolnikov. What is Dostoevsky doing here? Right? Is he setting up Sonya to be not just an illusion, but to be almost like more comparison to Jesus? And again, another thing to consider is that Mary of Bethany was actually Lazarus's sister and was there at that resurrection. So that whole story she tells, the kind of illusion of Raskolnikov to Lazarus, Mary of Bethany is there, and I think that's intentional as well. That would be on Dostoevsky's mind as he is writing this. So with all this kind of more historical and kind of a better understanding of the illusion kind of and this knowledge in mind, I want to go back to that that question of like why, right? Like why portray Sonya in the way that she's portrayed, especially in those first 3 chapters of part 5, right? Well, if you kind of think about it, and we saw this a little bit with Cordelia in in King Lear last semester, but he kind of wants to have again a character who is maybe the most moral and the most holy, right? To be someone who society regards in very low esteem, kind of kicked to the curb, not even regarded all that well, not treated very nicely by others, even Raskolnikov at times, right? So Dostoevsky's doing something, he's subverting this, right? He wants to do that intentionally, right? So just kind of keep this question in mind, especially as we finish the book, especially when we get through part 6 and the epilogue. Why might Dostoevsky be alluding to these biblical figures through the character of Sonya? How does this maybe help serve his greater purpose, some of the messages and themes we'll consider when we finish the novel? Now, as a character, though, a question I often pose to students is, all right, is Sonya a strong female character, right? Is she someone that we could look at and be like, yeah, she's a strong female character. Dostoevsky is doing a good job writing her. Or is she just so self-sacrificing that she's kind of unrelatable, right? Saw a little bit of that with Cordelia, right? Does Dostoevsky kind of do the character justice, or do we read her and just get a little bit frustrated? Now, everyone's going to have their own opinion about that, and I think that's the beautiful thing about literature, right? But I do think it's good questions to ask no matter what. Most people would probably describe her as meek. I think that's a great word to use when thinking about Sonya. What does meek mean, though, right? You even think it is actually kind of very much a biblical word as well. Right? There's a phrase from the Bible called "Blessed are the meek." Well, meek kind of has two. It has one main definition, but you can kind of have slightly two different takes on it. Right? We might say, okay, you describe someone as meek. They are humbly patient. They are quiet in nature, and when they are under provocation or someone's coming at them, right? They stay gentle and kind and humble, right? And we might say like, oh yeah, I guess that's a good quality to have, maybe especially in 2026. There's a lack of humility, lack of that gentleness and kindness in ways. Maybe that's always been the case. However, you can also kind of see it through a negative light, right? If you're meek, maybe you're overly submissive. Maybe you're overly compliant. Maybe we would go so far as to call you spiritless or tame, right? So you can kind of see it being taken to maybe an extreme in which it's more of a frustrating quality to see in people. So my question for you, right, is what kind of meekness does Sonya convey, right? Is it virtuous and humble, something we would see as a positive, or is it more passive and ineffective? And you might read, again, especially part 5, chapter 3, with her own interpretation of the character, right? She doesn't really get much of an opportunity to defend herself, right? She is kind of dependent on Lev Zanatikov to have to, in some ways, come to her rescue. But it's a question I want you to ask yourself. I don't know. There's not going to be, I think, a definitive answer. It's something you just want to consider as we finish the novel. And sure enough, she'll play a big role here at the end of the novel. We also know, if we compare her to Dunya, we know Dostoevsky could write her more like the character of Dunya, right? Dunya, I would say, is much more active, right? She totally, kicks Lucian to the curb earlier, right? Breaks up with him. We'll see Dunya do other things that are very active in the novel. So it's intentional, right? That he's depicting Sonya in this way. But again, just kind of think about, all right, how do you read it? Virtuous and humble, or more passive and ineffective? Uh, Now, as for how Raskolnikov views her, because that will be kind of important moving forward, well, I think the whole idea of like him kissing her feet, right, is that he does seem to respect and admire that suffering and strength, even though she might be very meek. He admires what she is going through. As I said, he's also kind of demeaning of her at times. Maybe he gets frustrated with her at times, but there's almost like, this odd respect he seems to have for her, this admiration. It's just something to, as I said, keep note of as we move on in the novel. All right, well, that's everything I have for you today. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day, and I'll see you at the next class.